Cheers, everybody, and welcome to your favorite late night Friday night hashcast. It is Variables, episode 44, and we are your hosts, Pedro Frigoli and Superior Buds. You can find us streaming every Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Should probably mute my YouTube. I always do this. And of course, on YouTube, X, and Twitch, and anywhere after the show you get your podcast, Spotify included. Tonight we have a special guest. Well, a couple special guests, and even a third one on the couch there with them. Pedro, you want to tell us about our guest tonight?
Absolutely. So over here we've got a first place Cannabis Cup award-winning hash maker and grower with many other awards that we don't need to get into all of them. And if my screen stops flashing, I'll be able to read the rest of this. Very active Instagram user, sharing lots and lots of useful growing and processing information. So I definitely highly recommend going and following her over there. But more importantly, a survivor of a near-death experience that she's talked about a lot, Lyme's disease. And because of that, she's become a patient and a fighter for the right to use plant-based and animal-based medicines in which she's used herself. Most know her as an amazing grower, hash maker, educator, and some know her as the nude farmer. Here she is, Jenn Doe, with her friend Jalal sitting next to her. Hi there to you two. How are you guys both doing?
Hi, we're good.
Welcome to the show. Absolutely.
It's got to be like the most in-depth introduction I've had. Thank you.
You're welcome. You deserve it.
Yes, this is my friend Jalal. He just moved here from Pakistan, so
wow.
he has some good stories to share with us. I thought that would be fun to kind of get into that since we're talking hash.
Yeah, absolutely cool.
Grower and hash processor, then, Jalal?
Yeah, I have gone I've been smoking hash almost all my life, so I have seen all the traditional methods and processes in the areas in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, and even Morocco, and I kind of tasted all of these different type of hash, which were made from different traditional methods. And yeah, they have their unique flavors. Head high, some would give you very greater body highs rather than head highs. So every country have its own aroma, their own flavor, and their own process. The process is basically describing the hash.
Okay. We're not going to get to that question just yet, but I love that route he's already going down.
I know.
Well, we got to start somewhere, and let's start with this because we got two people to tell us their story tonight. Jenn, let's start with you. Tell us about the first time you ever smoked weed.
Oh gosh, I think I was 13. I don't remember it so well. So
it's a side effect of the medication, you know.
Sometimes for sure.
Memory loss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So definitely an early consumer though.
Early consumer. My parents don't like me to rat them out, but they used to smoke and hide it from me a lot, and so that, of course, piques our curiosity. I'm like, "What is this?" I
read one of your reviews. I saw that they're closet smokers over there.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to know. My mom's not. But yeah, so I started at a young age. I noticed that it really helped with a lot of different things, focus, just overall well-being, a little bit of a rough childhood. Who doesn't have one of those? But we definitely helped a ton.
And what about you over there? What about you over there, Jalal?
Looks like the mic disconnected, it said.
Hold on. You guys' mic is disconnected, Jenn. Can you hear me?
And we got you disconnected or muted over there, something.
Okay, so
there you go.
There we go. I didn't know if it was me.
This is Chase. He just messed up our sound.
It's all me.
Tripping over cords over there, Chase, are you?
Yeah.
Is that an HK Army shirt you've got on?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that is amazing. Maybe we'll get there, but that's beautiful.
We'll get there.
Chase is probably going to join us for part of this too. He was just busy eating ramen, so
Lucky.
Yes.
Back to you later, Chase.
Yes.
Don't pull the headphones out again. Anyway.
Yeah, I was like at that time I was studying in a college which had a hostel, and it was all boys hostel, so it wasn't like we were not allowed to smoke or do anything, but we kind of smuggled hash in that university or hostel, and we were able to make hash cigarettes because we didn't have rolling papers at that time. So we just like emptied the tobacco out of the cigarette, melted some hash in it, filled a whole box of cigarette, climbed a pipe on like to get to the top story of that building. And like I had my 5 friends with me. We sat there, we smoked like 20 cigarettes. And yeah, it was like I was literally high. I remember vomiting out after that because I was that high. And yeah, I wasn't able to get like my first buzz or first high was ended up being a very bad. But later on I just kept smoking it and trying new different hash, and I was like I started loving the plant. Like I really started researching on it, like what are the genetics and what are other stuff. So yeah.
My first experience was in a basement, and you said you climbed a pipe on the side of a building to get to the roof to smoke for the first time, and then you smoked 20 joints worth of hash.
I know, right? That's
next level.
Yeah, then we have to climb back down to get to our.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm never coming down, guys. I'm living up here.
I now live here.
Yeah.
I have kind of a funny story about maybe like the second or third time I smoked weed. We all cut class. It was like, I don't know, junior high. And we got really stoned. And then they handed me a handful of niacin pills. And I was like, what is this for? And they were like, oh, just take them. It like helps something with the weed. And I'm like, okay. So like half an hour later, I am like beet red and just sweating. And I'm like, what the fuck did you give me? And they were like, well, how many did you take? And I was like, all of them. They're like, you're supposed to take 2 and take the rest home. And I was like,
oh no.
I was on fire.
Instructions would have been nice.
Yeah.
It was stressful, but yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, that's a rough experience for being one of the early ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're kind of doing the right thing by trying to flush it out of your system. If you were to take a drug test, like I hear,
right? I kind of understand that, but other than that, I don't really get the.
I mean, that just goes to show with the type of people I was hanging out with. They thought,
well, and
could, you know.
I don't know how old you are, but I mean, I imagine this is also at a time where it's like, you know, all this information wasn't available on Instagram and YouTube. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like we
on YouTube. Yeah,
you couldn't Google it.
Yeah, no. It was just hearsay from someone else that you played telephone with until they got to your ears. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 43, and this was when I was like 13, so 30 years ago. Yeah.
Late 90s, smoking on that blueberry. And sour D. Yeah, sour D is probably.
I was in Utah. We didn't have the luxury.
Oh shit!
Mexican brickweed, and
yeah, Utah.
Occasionally, some beasters would come around from some of our like rich friends, but no good shit.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way I was until I was probably early 20s till I started growing myself.
Yeah.
Jen, what makes it good shit to you now that you've been smoking for? I mean, at least on and off for 30 years, and you've been growing for how long now?
14 or 15 years.
Awesome. So what makes it good shit to you now that you've got all this experience and more than just smoking, but also being, you know, quite frankly, the mother to the plant, right?
I mean, that's like a huge jump from brickweed to like top shelf. So everything is different. Everything makes it better.
But in terms of your personal preferences, let's say today, like what makes great weed to you, not just like, top shelf, but like exceptional weed? Because we talk about things like bag appeal, right? We talk about things about flavor profile and effects, but there's a huge kind of laundry list of things, especially as a grower too, like maybe how easy it is to trim, or how quickly it finishes, or all these other things. What, and this all-encompassing thing, the return on your hash production, like all these things, what makes exceptional weed to you today?
Ooh, well, considering I do primarily grow for the hash, I'm definitely looking for the resin, not just yield. Like a lot of my favorites have had a very small yield on those, but they are gold, So,
Right.
I like it when it hits different notes. I like a lot of the more old school strains. Like the hypey stuff is great, but I just feel like we're breeding so much out of the plant.
Ooh, I want to get into that too, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Flavor. I mean, when I'm growing, like structure and ease of growing and whatnot is really helpful. Yeah, if it's shitty to grow, like it has to be incredibly good on every single fucking level. Otherwise, like,
It better dump, right?
Yeah. I want to see, some, relative to whatever it might be, some like 6 or 7 or 8% returns, right? I want to see, it better have like pink pistils and purple leaves and giant trichomes that you can see from a quarter mile away, like something about it.
right. Or just give me like that true 6-star melt with like enough that I can actually like have some, because that's one thing we can't get from a lot of plants. You can't get that true unicorn quality. You just can't.
Is that being bred out?
Is what?
Is that characteristic or that trait being bred out with the hype strains?
It can be, yeah.
I would just say it's not meticulously enough looked for. I feel like that I didn't get those words out right, but
Yeah.
I feel like the cuticle thickness is a thing that's way overlooked.
Yeah. Well, and where most people are producing for rosin, that doesn't matter. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, unfortunately, unless I get my own hands on it and wash it, it's hard for me to say, because everybody is squishing it or doing the freeze dried. Like when you do air dried, that's just a whole different product, even side by side to the freeze dried. And so, yeah, the freeze dryer kind of takes out the ability to really like identify that level of quality.
How so?
Oh, have you ever seen air dried next to freeze dried?
Yes.
In a jar, but not like on the shelf still.
Yeah. Have you ever tried one side by side?
What do you mean by tried?
Like, let's say, so I like to do a lot of experiments with mine where I'll freeze dry part of it, air dry part of it, and then actually do a side by side of the same product.
That's an interesting thought. No, I've never done that.
Patty, some of it goes to air dried, some of it goes to freeze dried. That way I can see what the difference is.
I don't know why I've never thought of that before. It's an excellent thought.
You kind of lose the ability to judge that quality in the same way, because when I sieve something and air dry it, you can't touch that with a freeze dryer. And because it's not being altered on the level of having that like super critical cold and it gets drier, the freeze dryer just takes something out of it. Like I'm not exactly sure what. I've seen tests side by side that say it's only like a little bit of a difference, but I feel like there's definitely something else in there that's happening because you just can't take this air dried and set it next to this exact same patty freeze dried, and they turn into two different products.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I believe you. I'd just be curious to know exactly what the details behind the science is. You know what I mean?
Like
me too.
The freeze dryer would take out all of the moisture. Air dry, you're going to take out 99 point whatever. You're still going to have that little bit, which is probably going to help your degradation or,
Well, we gotta think that a lot of that moisture, it's not just water. Like, so
right.
When the freeze dryer is taking out moisture, it's also taking out certain qualities of different terpenes.
We've talked about the smell of the the drain water from the freeze
I
dryer.
was going to say, when we've got drain water out, and we've actually processed the post-processed the drain water, and we've got results from it. We've extracted terpenes from the drain water. So I mean, there's absolutely something happening there.
So
undeniably.
If we can generalize for a moment just on the process, what would you consider the best method for, we'll call it solventless hash making, to be? Because it sounds like you definitely favor the air drying method, but it also seems like that's not a scalable solution for, a commercial enterprise, if you will.
Correct.
And again, there's a lot of things like that in growing and processing this plant that kind of keep it craft for a reason, because of those scalability challenges. But in your opinion, what's the best method to go about it? And let's start with at day of harvest. Are we fresh, frozen, half dry?
Kind of depends on what I'm growing and what element I'm washing in. Like there's some different tricks I have to contend with, like if the hash room doesn't want to stay cold enough, or if something's too sticky, I'll do.
Let's say ideal scenario.
Sounds like there's a bunch of variables.
Honestly, my favorite way is to do half dried and half fresh frozen. Wash those together.
Really?
Yeah, because then you're getting partially
fuller
cured.
Spectrum.
Yeah, much fuller spectrum.
Interesting.
And as far as scalability, the scalability is hard because, like we were just talking about, like that very small amount that you can actually get that true 6-star out of the melt, that is just like, because you can get really good 5-star easy. A lot of plants will put out really good 5-star. It's great. But typically people are squishing that now, right? But even just what the plant has the ability to produce in that is so limited. Typically it's like one of the bags is all. So we can't use that full scale of all of them like we can in rosin. So scalability is not about the not being able to do it, because you absolutely could. You would just need a little bit more space. But really the plant won't give us as much as we need to scale it that way.
And that's why price would be through the effing roof for it.
Which is worth it. I mean, that's my favorite kind. That is the closest that you can get to the cleanest, just unfucked with trichomes, I mean, you can go the step up and do dry sift. But even then, it takes a lot to get a really good, clean dry sift that is comparable to like a really good one.
I would say to all of us here on the panel, like if scenario, it's worth it. But again, back to scalability, is people going to pay what it's really fucking worth? You know what I'm saying?
If they won't, do they deserve it?
Right.
No,
that's a good call too. Right?
You just hoard it for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, think of like good caviar. Like if someone doesn't appreciate it, they really shouldn't have it. But the people that do know it and do have that appreciation,
that's me. I just give me some wasabi. I don't need the caviar.
Man, I tell you what, from in my experience in a lot of different markets, and not just cannabis industry, a lot of the cream off the top doesn't get seen by a lot of people. Like, I'm sorry, but man, there's a lot of love that goes into this, and that cream that's in that pile over there, and that's mine.
And I mean, part of the reason that I prefer it over any of the other hash, like going back to that whole side by side with the freeze dried versus the air dried of the same stuff. The air dried has a heavier punch, and the longevity of it is different. So I'm not sure what's happening. Like I said, I don't know what's being taken out in that freeze dryer, but so somewhere that, like, I've never seen this really like documented or talked about, but there's something in weed that makes it start and stop. Right? That's why we have like those creeper weeds where you smoke it and then all of a sudden it's like a little delayed, but then you're high. So there's something in that has like an on switch that's like, boom, now you're high. And then there's something in there that says this is when it expires. This is when it stops. So by doing these side by sides with the freeze dried compared to the air dried, and the air dried had a much longer, heavier high than any of the freeze dried, that kind of tells me that it gets really down more on like a molecular level. It's not just, oh, we took out this much terpenes, or you know what I mean? Like there's more to it. Like what exactly is it that is that start and stop that is in the weed that we don't have a name for that yet? Because I don't know that we've ever actually considered that, you know? So I think, yeah, I would love.
Okay, so let's do that real quick. If you think about other medication, what is the terminology they use? It's like onset time or something like that, right? Like we do use that in a lot of our labeling for like edibles specifically, right? Activation time, I think, is what we use here in Michigan. Could be 5 minutes, could be 1 hour. Sometimes they give that range of 5 minutes to 1 hour, But so activation time is maybe kind of already thought of in some ways, but not necessarily with like flower, dab, or just trichome, a profile of trichomes in general. But what would be the other thing, like duration? Because I mean, think about it, there's time release capsules, right? That will delay. I don't know how long it takes or how the length of duration that the medication would be like ingested. I know I'm not using the right terminology, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying. So I mean, we can compare it to other industries like we do with everything in our cannabis industry.
Mhm.
What would that be? And then, I mean, clearly, there's a huge market for that use, right? What's the one documentary that came out about what's the one big painkiller that was the whole time release thing, and then people realized it was time release, so they just crushed it, and then it was instant.
Purdue Pharma.
Was it Percocet or something?
Purdue Pharma.
Purdue Pharma.
Purdue Pharma. Yeah. Chase watched the documentary I'm talking about.
Thanks, Chase.
Yeah. They got busted. Well, it's a whole thing. Yeah, go watch it. Whatever that's called, but or just go read up on it. But yeah, the whole time release capsules, like there's the marketability for that. How do we apply that to something like a dab? Like, is that even realistically possible, other than just knowing that maybe freeze drying it is going to make it shorter, right? Is that what you said? It's kind of a shorter duration activation.
Well, like you were saying, we almost need to identify the precursor first.
Mhm.
Once we can identify it, then
name it after the precursor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's
the whatever effect.
Yeah, because there's not enough difference in the test results that I've seen to show to explain the difference that I experience when I do the side-by-side test.
Yeah, there's no like scientific result.
And that's been across the board. That wasn't just like, oh, this strain did that and this one didn't. That's been like pretty across the board.
Have you have friends that have done this with you had the same effects as well? Like, so it's across people. It's not a
No, at
cannabinoid.
some point, people were having to turn down my air dried, and they were going for the freeze dried version because they got too high for too long with the air dried. But the freeze dried, that was not the case.
It's super interesting that it crosses people like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So maybe
we're gonna definitely have to talk after this show. I think it's funny when I tell people that when I go. Because I'll go months and months and months without smoking flower. I dab. That's pretty much all I do. I don't smoke flower. When I do, holy fuck! Like, sit the fuck down. Like, people. I think people they laugh at me when they hear that. They're like, "Yeah, but you dab and you eat 400 milligrams, 500 milligrams a day." Well, like, yeah, but there's something about it. I'm not ashamed to admit it, man. There's something about it.
When we get into that, there's definitely something in the plant material that
right
obviously does not come along, and that does have a completely different effect.
I think that's why the different ways to produce things and including different things, i.e. not trimming or keeping more plant material on and processing with more plant material. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to find out that there's more benefits to this.
Well, hey, think about what you just said, in that if we're extracting a dried cured plant and we're getting 15% returns on it, and that's what our wax is, we have a whopping 85% of other stuff in that plant we didn't smoke because we didn't smoke the flower. We decided to further process it into an extract, you know. Now, I'm of the mind that most of that is what I would consider a contaminant or something you don't want to smoke. Like, I don't necessarily want to smoke the fats and lipids. I don't necessarily want to smoke chlorophyll. I don't necessarily want to smoke plant material that doesn't have trichomes on it because I am interested mostly in the trichomes, right?
So think about this though. Why is that? Who told you that you don't like? Why? What is your reason for not wanting to smoke these lipids and this plant material? Like what?
8 years of processing and seeing it, what's left behind in the materials column, and just knowing that I don't want in my lungs. I'd rather put that in an edible or topical.
But if it has an effect in an edible and a topical, before we got into this over processing life that we now live, like.
No, I like.
Well, it's because it's because THC binds to fats, and that's a great way of ingesting a natural plant fat is through an edible or topical. I wouldn't necessarily want to put that into my lungs. I think that's a good way of doing it too much, getting pneumonia or some other, you know, I don't know what the.
I mean, I've smoked a shit ton of flowers and I've never had pneumonia. I'm just, and I'm not saying, you know, don't, but.
I like the question.
Yeah, I'm just interested in like, where do we come up with these theories? Because
yeah, like where is on the scientific level of where we are? Where is the scientific proof that the fats, waxes, and lipids are bad for our lungs? Yeah, just maybe it is,
but a quick Google search would probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's gonna be
your lungs can't process that.
Yeah, and carcinogens and. Because of the combustion, most likely. That's just a guess. So let's Google it. Let me do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Then I guess the question would come down to any dabber: is combustion different than vaporization?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we're in Utah right now, and it's medical here, but the law is they have a no combust law.
So you can vape the shit, you just can't combust it. There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't trying to poo-poo that you don't like that shit. It's just I had this conversation the other day and was like, where did this no combust law come from?
You know? Here's I think I figured that one out like 8 years ago, and that's why I started to move away from it. And honestly, the thing that probably first sent me down that road was like smoking out of a volcano, because that was probably my first like vaporized experience. And you know, someone that was way more into that than I was at the time kind of explaining it to me, right? And then of course having these conversations every week, day in, day out, and probably most importantly just doing the experiments and experiencing it myself, you know, and ultimately I grow, process, and produce what I do for me because I'm my own patient, my own caregiver, right? And I'm growing these strains because I love them, you know, and my other patients as well. But if someone else likes them, that's great. You know what I mean? If it's not for them because it's too terpy and they have asthma issues or whatever, right? Like, also great. I get it. It's not for everybody. But I know I don't like. I would prefer not to combust things. I prefer not to ingest vaporized fats, lipids, chlorophyll, and other things like that, or combusted into my lungs. And ultimately, I'm really just looking for the cannabinoid and terpene profile from this plant. That's what I'm looking for. But that's my philosophy as a grower, processor, and consumer. You know, everyone has their own ability to choose that differently. For example, good luck getting my old man to do a dab. You know what I mean? Like, he just wants to smoke a joint. He wants to roll it himself, and he's blown away that these new skins they have are so thin, you know, and it's just like, but I'm not going to beat him down at, 70 years old for still wanting to smoke joints. Like, have at it, dude, you know? But that's, I don't know. Maybe it's just a personal preference thing. Maybe I don't have the science to back it, but I do have the experience to know what I like. And I fucking love live resin dabs. That's what I like. Speaking of which,
Yeah, no, this has been an interesting topic for me since I've been back in Utah here and there because of that, because I'm an avid flower smoker. I obviously love my hash as well, but if I had to choose one, I would probably go straight for my flowers. But yeah, no combust. So here's another funny thing. So mullein. Mullein is apparently very good for your lungs to smoke. So when we smoke mullein, we are also smoking that plant material, and so
I've
there's
heard this too,
yeah,
specifically for asthma
yeah,
patients for whatever fucking reason.
yeah. So when I went and got some mullein and was researching all this and stuff, I was like, okay, interesting. So here we have this plant that literally they're saying this is good for your lungs. Like where does cannabis fall in that category? Because really I don't recall hearing a lot of people having like lung issues from smoking just cannabis. Like maybe bad cannabis with pesticides or mold. Yeah. But
Yeah, that's you know what? That's a huge fucking point. I don't want to besmirch his name by any means. I podcasted with him for the last couple years of his life, but isn't no. I think you said from only cannabis, and I don't know how much he was or did not smoke cigarettes, but I think he did stop at some point subcool. And I think he was one of those guys that was like it was just too much on his lungs. He started getting away from flower and all this stuff. I've actually, speaking of my old man, one of his best friends, he's a grower himself. He rarely smokes flower, but he still needs the medicine for his back pain, so he just makes edibles.
yeah.
But that could be, who knows, cigarette smoking, lung, maybe a pneumonia bout early on in life,
Well,
some
and
other
Subcool had COPD, so his lungs were already really ripped
already
up.
shot.
And so, yeah, I mean, at that point, just even inhaling in the wrong city with high pollutants is going to aggravate their lungs because it's so sensitive. So I think a lot of that is more so that it's really painful to cough. And we all know, like, we cough, like, I mean, even coughing is like medicinal because it is an expectorant. So you're able to cough up a bunch of shit and it breaks things in your lungs.
Even
Gotta
tobacco
cough
is an expectorant.
Yeah, but the problem with a lot of these lung diseases is that they have such restricted lung capacity and already such damage in there that it's not necessarily the smoking, it's the coughing. So I've had a lot of patients that I would give them like the smoothest like 6-star that I could find in like a Puffco and have them still be able to do a little bit. And I would have them treat it like an internal topical, basically. But dosage was very important and cleanliness was very important. They had to take very small hits because if it triggered a cough reaction, that was the problem. So it wasn't the intake of it. It was if they overburdened their lungs that were already fucked up.
Real quick, what temperature are we actually combusting at? Because if you think about it, and we don't talk about this probably enough, I mean, people are taking some hot dabs, right? We've talked a lot in the community about lowering your dab temps and all that, and getting away from the
Louis
wood.
for life. No, just kidding.
Well, we gotta heat up the red hot so we can get those 1 gram dabs in, guys. But temperature's got to be part of play a part in that, right? And I don't know.
I'm not sure because you know what? I have kind of delicate lungs, but it has nothing to do with the weed. I have like scar tissue from when I was a kid. I had some really bad pneumonia. But actually, the higher temps are easier on my lungs than the lower high terp hits.
Why?
Yeah.
Because the terpenes are really fucking harsh. Like those are chemicals that we're burning and putting in.
Goddamn right.
So at the hotter temperature, it basically like sears those so quickly that you don't get that lingering heavy terp feel.
The coating,
I feel like there's a
topical.
Definitely feel like there's a too hot, but I feel like there's that almost too low for the asthma.
Yeah.
There's definitely a too low where you're not hitting full vaporization too. So you're
I mean that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you're literally just coating your lungs at that point.
Yeah. At that point, it's just straight terpene juices, and they can be very harsh depending on what they are. Have you guys ever just dabbed straight terps? Like,
We
oh my
talked
god,
about this, yeah.
take me back to Amsterdam 2015 when Tony Brazzura first had his very first terp separation, and we tried that shit alone. No, like so harsh, like dangerously harsh. Like, yeah. So
Very bad. Very bad.
yeah.
So I don't know what order I want to ask these
Well,
questions.
someone get out a temp gun and put it up against the joint. I need to know what temper combustion.
Right. I know.
Fire temp. Google it real quick. What temperature is fire?
This is ash. Ash
So
burner?
I think we'll ask it this way. Number one, we ask this on every show, but we try to for every guest, and I'm going to go there now because I don't know where we're at with the time, but I'm going to go in there now. What does hash mean to you? When somebody says hash, what is hash?
Oh, it's my life. Has been for a long time. Like, even before I was doing out in the open, like I was an avid hash smoker back when all we had was pressed shit. I would have friends that would come with these coins, and I would be so excited. Nobody else would smoke it. Nobody would buy it. That's for damn sure. But I had to like give it away with their bags and be like, no, smoke this. Like, I feel like there's something about this, but it was before we ever understood. And so just like the evolution of it, I don't know. It's the one thing in my life that's been able to hold my attention is cannabis and hash. So
then let me clarify my question with, is rosin hash?
Sure. A little bit. I mean,
BHO?
hash is very broad, right? So it depends on how
Is BHO
you
hash?
into it. On a broad spectrum, absolutely. On a
Is
broad
Rick
spectrum,
Simpson oil hash?
no, it's not. That I would not consider hash.
Why not?
Because we're not smoking it, and typically, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't consider an
Right, that's a good question. Like, where do you draw that line? I guess.
Yeah,
I
that line all of a
consider-
sudden.
I wouldn't consider an alcohol extraction something that I would view as a smokable product that I was producing, so I would not categorize.
Whoa, why are you
Oh,
being
shots
discriminatory
fired.
towards our solvents? Jeez, water's okay and hydrocarbons are okay, but alcohol's not.
I don't know. I guess I was just taught not to smoke alcohol-based extraction.
Yeah.
But again, like, you can ask me the same question. Why not? Like, I'm asking flowers. Why not? I don't fucking know. Someone told me, and I just sort of stuck to it. Like, that shit's for suppositories and oil and pictures and shit.
Make your candies with it.
Yeah.
That's funny. Jalal, what about you, man? I'd love to hear
That's
your
okay. That's a-
definition of
I
hash.
like it. I
Like
like it.
hash for me was a miracle plant.
No, like they're talking like actual product. That's where I got confused too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's why I'm gonna love
Like,
the fact that he's gonna bring us a different perspective.
I won't consider resin and like other stuff as a hash. I would just consider like the balls we used to get or the brick or like that, like properly mixed and everything. Yeah, exactly. I'll just consider
Like
this
that.
the hash, and there's this like two form. There's a hash and there's a church. That's a little bit different, but mostly hash would be for me the keef combined together and pressed, compressed, and went through a process which will just make hash. No chemicals added, nothing added. It's just the keef went through some heating process and stuff.
So, same question: is rosin hash?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
But,
fair, very fair.
What would you call it? Would you just call it rosin? Or
Yeah,
would
it's another category. Like, I'll keep it like hash. We won't mix hash with like church and hash. There's just one different, like, while you're making church, you're just like pressing it a lot and you're adding a little bit oil, so it has a different process. So we call that church. And hash or garda, basically, like the local name for hash over there is garda, and garda is the keef extracted
Dry
from
stuff.
plant, compressed, pressed, or like cooked a little bit under the heat. That's the like basic process of it.
Okay, so it's so some people we ask, they call that like traditional hash, you know what I mean? But they they would also consider chars hash, right? But I love that it's for you, it's got its own thing, but they're kind of like all sisters to each other, right? Like it's this all encompassing category, but still hash is its own thing over here.
I've tried to be unclear about it before too, I think it might have been last week I got caught being very clear that hash is, once it's pressed, it's not hash, it's rosin. Oops.
But if we're talking like the category, but I guess that would be concentrate. So I guess my brain, when I hear hash, goes directly to like the full spectrum of concentrates. But if someone was to ask me, to break it down farther, that's when I think I would bring in the different categories, because then you've got the melt, you've got the rosin, you've got
6-star, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I think when we looked it up originally, it's basically something along the lines of like the resin extracted from the cannabis plant. Like it's pretty general. It
was pretty general.
Yeah, but we have put so much terminology into this stuff, and we constantly are coming up with new versions of things and new ways to do things. It's almost like we're just renaming hash over and over again.
Right.
Well, and I think a lot of it also depends on like, when did you come into hash? Like what part of your life did you start? Because really all of this to me is just the evolution of hash, because I started with the old school hash, and I also studied all of them, from the traditional to the non-traditional to the open blasting to the like every bit of hash that I can. And so for me, like, it's really just the evolution of hash when we're on that smaller level. I do think we've leaned really hard into like the over processing, which is great, but I also still enjoy like the old school hash, because again, like I also appreciate like the plant material and what that actually does for us. But it's different, It also depends on how I'm feeling. Like sometimes I can't smoke flower, but I can smoke hash.
Well, that's kind of what leads me to my next question. Was a sister to that one, is what is your preferred method of consumption for hash, specifically hash? And I guess that's your definition. You define it yourself. What's your preferred method for consumption?
I'm kind of lazy these days, so I go to the
Please say Puffco.
The electronics. I'm not going to say any brand. I'm going to say I lean towards in good old school for sure as well. But again, I'm lazy, so that would require me to actually like do the
so a dab rather than a lit combustion.
Yeah, that's kind of just currently though, because I'm traveling all over the place. I'm looking for just the convenience of
That's it. I love the convenience. That's really what it is for me too. I rely more on the cannabis to bring me the experience that I think I do everything else, but maybe it's just laziness, maybe it's convenience, maybe it's a combination of a lot of
things. It's also like the consistency of it. I know every time it's pretty much the same temperature, and so it allows me to know the difference between things.
These rosin heads love to overcomplicate things. Okay, so about this combustion versus vaporization, says most vaporization.
Small.
Let's do that. Most vaporization devices will heat the cannabis just below the point of combustion, which ranges between 180 to 190 degrees Celsius, about 356 to 374 degrees Fahrenheit. On the other hand, a lighter will produce, and it's definitely higher than that. Well, that's vaporization, so maybe they're talking like volcano, right?
Right.
I was thinking dabs. On the other hand, a lighter will produce an open flame that can reach more than 315 degrees Celsius or 600 degrees Fahrenheit, an extremely high temperature that will boil away a substantial amount of cannabinoids and terpenes before the cannabis is even consumed. My thinking, though, is the flame from the lighter 600 degrees, or is it ash?
No, the cannabis combusts at 450.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit.
So you found it.
Yes.
So 450 degrees. They're saying that's about what is that, 100 degrees more?
But that makes sense. So the lighter, the flame is actually 600. So when you're torching a bowl, there goes your terpenes.
You got to inhale real hard and put a ton of dry sift at the end of your joint.
There you go.
What about you, Giselle? How do you like to consume
Yes,
your.
like I have tried a lot other methods, smoking in a hookah and stuff, but like rolling a joint with tobacco is the best for me.
Spliffs.
Yeah,
Very traditional.
yeah, yeah.
That would fuck my world. I do enjoy my tobacco, my nicotine here and there, and I try not to, but man, when I do it only takes just a little bit, and the whole fuck I gotta sit
Like,
down.
I can't
the
mix them.
tobacco just increases the temperature of burning while you're just inhaling it, so that's why you're just getting more buzz, and you're getting a big throat hit too. The aroma is kind of hitting you in on the back of your throat, and yep, that's like in hash. It's like that's how I can easily define the flavor and aroma and everything while smoking in a joint. Almost like.
Are you a fan? Have you ever rolled hash into a joint by any means, whether it's rolling into a snake or whether
Dude, he smoked 20 hash-filled joints his first time he ever smoked.
were they all the hash filled joints, or were
I
they
think
just? I thought they
yeah.
were tobacco. Oh, I thought they were tobacco filled, or
The-
tobacco and.
hash and tobacco?
Hash
I
and
did-
tobacco. That's
I
how.
didn't. My bad. I didn't hear the hash in that one.
Think
I didn't hear
about
the
climbing
hash.
down from a roof like
Yeah,
that. That's
Jesus.
just so
I thought it was
paranoid.
just. I thought it was just tobacco and cannabis. I didn't realize it was hash in there too. My God, that changes.
I don't know if I could climb down after one these days. let alone
No.
There
fuck.
better be a zip line, and you better be strapping me in. Like,
Well, then
full
on
out
that
harness.
on that note, when you do mix it in, do you prefer to like crunch it up and like pepper it in, or do you like to roll it in and then lay it in the middle?
So whenever you're, for example, if you're just crunching it and making small balls and just putting with the tobacco, it at that time when you're smoking that thing, it gives you a dry head. So what I like to do is I just like to put whatever the quantity of hash I'm gonna use on my palm, give it a little bit heat, make sure the all trichomes and everything is in the same layer and they're pressed together. I'll just give little bit heat and press it on my palm, and then after that I'll let it like bubble on my tobacco and melt it on the tobacco, and then I'll mix it with my tobacco.
All right.
So if it's more dry and if it's getting like, I won't just directly put my lighter under it. I'll keep the flame aside and let it bubble. If it's like taking more time to bubble, that means that that hash has some impurities in it. If it's just getting bubbling right away and melting right away, that means that is the purest shit around.
that's 6-star.
I've kind of done that with rosin myself. You end up having a dirty rosin or dab tool, and I've
Yeah.
heated it up before and dripped it into another jar, dripped it into a banger, dripped it into a bowl, or So that's kind of a good idea. I think that's a
I
good.
usually wipe it on my joint papers.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good tips for everybody out there. Everybody's writing notes. They're like, fuck it.
I used to just wipe it off with a paper towel. One of my girlfriends was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like,
I mean, I guess if you wipe it off with a paper towel, then just swallow the paper towel, right?
Oh, I'm just trying to make my trash smell nice. Okay. No, you should see. I wish I could show you the silicone mat that my like whole setup is on next to me, and specifically where my dab tools lie, because it looks like a shotgun spray from about 3 inches away of just dabs everywhere. And I think eventually I'm going to collect them all into one big thing, but I don't know when. I don't know, but that's like
that's like
for
the
sure, like
of
6
scraping
months worth of dabs.
10 years ago. That's like
Scraping the bowl.
10 years.
I think honestly that was my first experience with hash. Was my buddy explaining when we were bankrupt that you could just heat up the bowl, like basically just torch the bowl. There's nothing in it, but there's something in it. Poke around on the bottom a little bit. You get all these black chunks. Those suckers will heat right back up, and it's basically hash.
Yeah.
Get your baby stone.
Oh man, give you a head rush at the same time too. But
Mhm.
Scrape the inside of a bowl with a pocket knife and smoke that.
Now we're doing 600-degree dabs.
Get it,
I'm not gonna lie, I'll do that every once in a while just to remind me where I came from.
baby. That's funny. Dab that shit, baby. Throw that shit in a blender. See where that goes. That'd be a good Instagram video. Fuck that. I shouldn't have said that out loud.
You're up.
Damn it.
Whoa.
Free content ideas.
I'm still waiting for someone to collect their resin ball, like a reclaim ball, rather, like Subcool used to do, and just. No, I can't.
I mean, I dabbed the roach rosin terps.
That's way worse, if I'm honest with you.
Roach
That's what I was
rosin.
thinking of.
Jen probably doesn't know this story. We've told it a few times, but just can you give her the Spark Notes version?
I mean, simply put, one of my buddies, Envy Closet Med Grower, pressed some roach, saved a bunch of roaches, and pressed a bunch of roaches into some roach rosin, and I dabbed that shit. It was great. It's wonderful. Best shit ever.
Okay.
He's lying. It's not wonderful.
It was
He turned multiple shades of green that day.
It was horrible, shattery. The color was what you can imagine it would be, and yeah, it was
That
for the books. It was for the books, right?
sounds experimental.
Mhm.
With
You
it.
gotta have fun, you know. Gotta keep things
I've made
interesting.
some really horrible flower rosin and had some real dark stuff, but that shit that Pedro dabbed,
Dude, it was bad.
that was black hole stuff.
It was really bad. I don't even want. I won't even dab flower rosin anymore. I don't want anything to do with it.
You're traumatized.
I just don't. Yeah, I just don't. Plus, I do have asthma, and sometimes, like even right now, I'm. You probably see me in the background pushing mute. I'm kind of trying to take a little bit of break, and not dabbing as much. But as you can see in my Instagram videos as well, sometimes I'm a fucking dab monster. You know, I like to dab my. My grandma and a half dabs once in a while, and going up and watching a movie. It's fucking fun to me.
Maybe you need to get some mullein on the side so you can see if that'll help with your asthma.
That's not a bad idea, right?
That's the stuff that I bought when we talked to SBMV. Got the mullein pills that helps get all that crap out of the chest.
I've got some stuff that's called lung cleanse. I wonder if it's got that in it. So it's an oil.
I think it's probably mullein, mullein extract.
It's very possible.
It comes in pills and tinctures, and I just get the raw stuff and roll it into mullein joints.
Didn't taste very good from what I remember.
Not
Yeah,
really.
actually, mine's a tincture. Now that you said that, because I was putting it in tea, hot tea.
Yeah, that's what I do with mine. But it does kind of help, but but I do find that obviously the dabbing aggravates it. So
Yeah. Another thing you can use for asthma is go get some lobelia tincture.
okay.
Lobelia. And you just put a couple drops under your tongue. So my little sister's asthmatic, and we were downtown once when she had massive asthma attack. Didn't have an inhaler.
Oh Jesus, so scary.
Running into a health food store to look for this lobelia stuff, and after giving her the drops, it was like pretty instantaneous because our next step was going to be the emergency room.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you might want to try some of that.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Might be a good idea. I think that's a lot of what led me down, you know, aside from the ex-wife. I think that's a lot of what led me down the path of the hash and the rosin is just cleaner ingestion,
Yeah.
you know, less aggravation on the lungs, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see what lands in my, reclaim portion, and I see what lands in the bottom of these crispy bowls that and it just seems like there's a lot more gunk that's coming through the flour bowls and that's coming through the dab rig, I don't know. That's one experiment I did to kind of push me in that direction, I guess.
You know, and that's another reason why, and then this is genuine. This isn't just me being a salesman, although there's just about 10% maybe being a salesman. I like these more expensive rigs where the contact with the smoke, vapor, whatever you want to call it, the water contact is as much as it can be, as increased as possible. To me, that's part of the art of the glass blowing itself, is how much contact, i.e. filtration, when you see the globs at the bottom of these rigs, I mean, that's filtration. To me, that's part of getting a rig, a nicer rig, is the filtration.
Definitely
Jason first.
changes the hit.
The pulp. You'll see the pulp just collect.
Here, Chase wants to tune
No,
in
I'm
on
good.
that.
I'm good.
He agrees with you.
I agree, though.
Chase, I feel like we could squeeze you in here almost.
I'm good.
Yeah, I think also with the flowers, we have to consider that I not only grow my own, so I know what I'm smoking, but even when I'm not growing my own, we're pretty spoiled when we have really good growers as friends, because I don't have to contend with the same stuff that other people do. Like, I don't go to a dispensary. I don't have to go to somebody I don't know. It's either mine or somebody at the same equal care, So that's one reason I lean towards flower. Because if I didn't have that access, I would definitely lean towards hash. So I think that has a lot to do with that as well.
Do you think it's harder to grow good weed than it is to... No, wrong question. Do you think it's harder to find good hash than it is to find good flower?
Depends on where you're at, I think.
In Utah?
Yeah. I've been told they need help with their concentrate game, so I might be looking into a couple of things to see if I can assist and, bring that quality up a bit. Flowers are really hard to find good quality because everybody's scaled up and you obviously lose that craft touch. So, like when I was in Maine, no, you can find great fucking flowers anywhere. They are also to the point now where you can find great hash. So, super lucky. But then if you like drop down into Massachusetts, I feel like you're kind of hard pressed for finding really good flower. Although there's like the couple handfuls out there, they're still doing really good. But I have seen some really amazing hash makers out there. So that's kind of given a little more access to the hash. Utah, yeah, no, I've seen what comes out of the dispensaries. I haven't investigated it super hard. I've just had friends that are like, oh, I got this. I'm like, oh, dispensary.
Cool. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it depends, like Washington, great hash, Oregon, great flowers. Yeah.
I feel
I
like
think I kind of have a
spoiled.
unique view to things too, because I'm just fucking spoiled and just all
Right.
so that's where the focus is at. Like I don't actually run into like shit all that often because of who I choose to, associate with, I guess. I don't know.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite flavor profile or like terpene profile?
I have a couple of them.
Let's hear them.
Strawberry is my absolute favorite. Absolute fucking favorite. Throw some banana in there second or combine the two and I'll be there. And then there's banana. And then I love like a fucking really good solid OG. Those will be like my top three right there.
Well, I was reading that comment
it.
and totally missed the last one. Strawberry, banana, and what was the last one?
Like a really good original OG.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of a break away from those other two for sure, but I understand why. Like strain wise, or strawberry, what's your favorite like strawberry strain? Like a strawberry cough or something, or like more?
Well, my absolute favorite was my strawberry OG. That was really good. I thought it was strawberry cough for a little while, but it wasn't. It was strawberry OG. That was half of my cup winner. So that was my all-time favorite strawberry. I've grown a bunch of them. I think my very favorite was the sour strawberry that I just did like 2 years ago. I popped the sour strawberry and it hits all the right sweet notes and then it has that little bit of sour at the end, and that one was fabulous. So sour strawberry is the most recent one. I grew one from Sin City Seeds that was strawberry sequoia. That one was really interesting.
What do you know what the cross was on that? I've definitely never heard of that one.
I can't remember because I think that was like 2016.
I guess I have Google over here, huh? Strawberry. I'm not gonna do this live because Sequoia. I think that's right. Sequoia strawberry garden. It's a type of strawberry. So now I got to look up strain, and I'm going to add in weed.
That's what I was gonna say. I was just about to tell you, it flips the words and it becomes an actual strawberry type.
Yeah. Sequoia strawberry by Sin City Seeds is a sativa dominant strain with strong motivating attributes. Wow. The genetic offspring of white strawberry and white nightmare.
There you go. Yeah, that one was nice, but it did have that more uppy. One of the good things that I've noticed with strawberry for me is it's just like mood enhancement. Like it does get me that like extra smile and just like a little bit giggly. Like I just noticed, just improves my fucking attitude, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but that one, yeah, that was leaning a little on more of the uppy side. But like the sour strawberry is. What's the cross on that one? Look that up. That was I think that's Crockett.
Okay. He's got a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of pictures of strawberries again, but sour strawberry bred by, well, this says BOG seeds. This is Leafly, so who knows? Let's look up Crockett.
No, I'm pretty sure that was a Crockett.
Yeah, here we go. Sour strawberries. It is strawberry banana, which is banana, kush, and bubblegum, crossed with sour chem dog. Damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it gets that sour on the back end, but it gets that fucking really sweet, delicious on the front. And I get the bubblegum, like, because it what is that gum? Think of like a Bubblicious strawberry.
Bubblicious.
Yeah, but
Oh.
that like mixed with like that big league, those
yeah.
So if you take like a pinch of that and like a half of the Bubblicious strawberry, like that's kind of what you get.
That sounds great.
And then the sour
really
comes out on the exhale, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet and sour, man. Give it to me all day. Jalal, you mentioned at the beginning of the show about how different countries have very distinct different kind of flavors. My question is kind of the same that I just asked Jen. What was your favorite and why? But also, after you're done answering that, maybe you can tell us why you think they were so different. You know, whether it was topographical, geological, regulatory, you know, I don't know, like why, but let's hear your favorite, like out of those that you mentioned earlier.
Out of those, I am a big fan of Afghan hash.
Okay.
One of the best. I think it's kind of their native plant, and the Kush region, they have a lot of that Kush region. They have like that land races there. And so yeah, every like they have different, even in Afghanistan they would have like very different type of hash grown, making hash in different places. Like for example, a town on the left side of a mountain would be growing a different landrace genetic, which would be for them for 100 of years. Like that landrace is coming in there and they're inheriting that landrace, and the other side of the mountain would be growing a different landrace. The hash would be of different colors. It would definitely smell and like have a different hit as well, because the water source is different. One village might be near the river, but the other might be like far the river, so their water source is different and the other is different. So all of those things is, there's a lot, like even after this, the rain, the sunlight, the sun timing, around the mountain because these hash growers are living around the mountains, and those mountains are rocky mountains most of the time. So this is like the rocky, even in like that's the same in Iran, that's the same in Morocco, that's the same in Pakistan. Like all those regions have the same type of area where most of the people are growing hash, and they're like they have big fields, and so that's why like, and the one of the problem they are having is like the landrace genetics over there have a lot of seeds. The buds, when they're growing up, they have a lot of seeds. That's why we are not able to smoke that plant right
Is
away.
that because they're just not pulling males, or maybe their neighbors aren't pulling males, or what's the deal?
Nah, so like that plant is wild over there. So whatever a farmer do, we can't just get the
Free
pollination. Yeah, we
pollination. Got
can't
it.
just like, you know, that plant is around the roadside males. So basically males, there would be a lot of male growing around the roadside.
It's like when they
Mhm.
legalized
Cigarettes,
CBD
yeah.
and all the hemp went wild and were pollinated everybody's crops. You
Yeah.
can't fall through the mountains and demale the fucking.
Hey, listen, I got what I call volunteers growing on my property, and sometimes you're like, how did you even get there? You know, like a bird should you to take you 50 feet or like 150 feet and shit you out over there, and now you're growing. What? Like, all right, I guess I got a weed plant over here now.
Yeah. The ones in the compost pile at least make sense. But it's the random ones that you
Well,
got to think about. Like,
The ditches by the sides of
The
the roads
chickens.
and everything. It's like it's their natural weeds. Like we look
Mhm,
weeds like nettle and
It like it's very native plant over there, and like no one is obviously like every year there are housing societies coming in place, so every year they are kind of cutting it. But still, in even those housing societies, when they have cut the plant, it will grow back again after the monsoon, and that plant like in 2 to 3 months, that plant would be looking like a tree. It won't like that trunk.
it's
would
what we
be like
dream of
this.
here.
Like the what you guys do, like you guys try to give plants some pressure and stuff to so the trunk and everything grow bigger. So over there we have like when that plant is growing from the seed, we'll be facing heavy winds, we'll be facing lot of rainfall. So that plant would be growing like moving left to right every single second, and that like whenever it's coming out, the main trunk would be getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And the leaves were like our native plant leaves are not that thick, they're very like thin leaves at the edges. And so I have grown few landrace genetics over there and the hybrids over there too. So our landrace genetics have like very thin parts.
Dude, I mean, your landrace genetics have been essentially breeding themselves for tens of thousands of years, and in a matter of about 25 years, we've in our basements and garages and grow tents have managed to fuck up these genetics to the point
Yeah.
where they're flopping over, they're catching all the viruses, they can't manage pests on their own, they're catching every single mold that gets thrown at them, and we've lost a lot of the landrace traits that I think a lot of us are missing. But oh my goodness, but cool, we got the hype strains and it's called runts, so that's fun.
That would be so great to just like I used to walk around and like all my bag seed from all my swag, I would just Johnny Appleseed the fuck out of anywhere that I went, just hoping that one day I would like pull up to one of those planters on the freeway and some weed would be growing, or but just have it naturally.
To do that ethically, do you have to use feminized seeds?
We have
No.
very less like it's just, like random seeds, and we'll be like we have so many seeds that we use those seeds in bird feeds as well.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. I can see that.
That's
High
how.
quality.
So when we are getting our female buds have that many seeds. After extracting some of the weed or some of the hash or like trichomes out of it, those seeds are going into either like feed of the birds or like any animal, like we can use that seeds for animal feeds as well.
I like to eat them myself.
And that
Yeah.
as a coolant for the birds and animals over there. Like that's a coolant type of thing for them. Like it helps their digestive system that way.
So you would think it would also help humans too, right, Jen? And you mentioned you eat them. I know that I've eaten them, not at like I've never eaten like a bag of them, like you would a bag of chips, right? You know what I mean? But I've definitely had tasted cannabis seeds, and I guess I've done some like juicing and smoothies and stuff like that with leaves and whatnot. But the seeds are pretty dense in nutrition and aminos and the good fats and stuff, right?
You can
Is
buy
there?
hemp hearts, but there's
Yeah.
nothing like a fresh fucking seed right out of the oopsie. This isn't supposed to be.
We bought them for the chickens in the past. The hemp seeds, just giant bag of hemp seeds. They go crazy for them.
I bet.
I do too. They're so good. You can get the roasted, salted ones that are just like you do eat them like a little bag of chips. You
Yeah,
know?
that sounds like the only way to me.
Yeah, or you can get just like the hemp hearts. You can eat those alone too, but like in smoothies, fucking awesome. Oh, so good.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
What about BHO? What's your feelings on that, Jen?
I like BHO too.
Okay. I know you said you've kind of experienced it from the processing side, even open blasting and all that. Do you currently practice any hydrocarbon processing?
Well, that would be illegal now, wouldn't it?
Well, I guess it depends on where you're at, and
No. I don't right now, but when I have a plant that I know it's not going to wash, but I want the flowers off it, yeah, I would absolutely blast it.
So it's more about just having the tools in the tool shed, so to speak. You know what I mean? To like kind of make what's best out of the plants you have.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing about BHO, like I started with BHO and then I got like pushed out of the little training, and like the boys didn't want me to be in there. They were being a little snotty.
Boys only club?
Yeah, they were.
Why?
Because they're douchebags. Like, literally, I don't know what other answer is there to that, but yeah, they kind of pushed me out, and I was like, fuck you. Then I heard I can do this with water, and so that's how I did it. I was like, fine, that's you guys. Fine, you guys got the BHO. You do that. That's your thing. This is my thing. Nobody else is doing it, right? And they're like, no, fuck your water shit. And I was like, okay, well, they're gonna regulate that, so I think that I'm onto something here. So I started making water hash, and they just like heckled the shit out of me and thought it was the stupidest thing ever. So I was just like, whatever, thanks. So yeah, I do still love BHO, and it's a lot of fun to make. It's fun to work with the different consistencies, but I like all hash, really, like the larger spectrum of it.
Right. As long as it's quality, right? Like that's kind of what.
Absolutely.
I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to quality, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I'll revisit some shitty shit every once in a while if someone has it. Like I won't pull the fucking snot on them. I'll just like lower my fucking ego and literally remember like when my appreciation started. It's perfectly acceptable. So I'm not going to go out and search for lower quality for myself to, you know what I mean? But like I do that's a lie. I do like when I'm out of the country or anywhere, I'll go and try and find that fucking I want that old school brick weed fucking experience. Yeah. I don't know. I like it all.
That's brave.
Nostalgic, I think,
Yeah, I would agree. Nostalgic for sure, but definitely brave.
I get that experience when I go home, go visit friends.
Yeah, well, it keeps you appreciative of what we have. I think we lose sight of that,
Yeah, I definitely try to look back and try to.
You're like, nah.
at least have a perspective.
No.
I wouldn't go back as far as fucking smoking brick weed, but
like you said, as long as we have sight of it, you just got to see it every once in a while to be like, oh yeah, no, that's what I don't want to do that.
I'll tell you what, I have not smoked weed for years that can put me to sleep, but if you find me some of that old fucking classic brickweed, like talk about wake and bake and go the fuck back to sleep. Magic.
That's funny.
Magic.
Nice.
There
That's
is
funny.
not a single weed that I have found in the last 10 years that wasn't like that random brickweed when I was in literally Mexico. Like none of it can put me to
It's
sleep.
it's those crushed fucking seeds in there. I'm telling you.
Well, we picked the seeds out, you know? But like I don't know.
Snap,
Heavy
crackle, pop.
CBN, I'm sure, because if they're growing it down there with that heavy sunlight, like it just matures, and it's their landrace strains, you know. So something about it, they're just heavy on those CBNs, and it's
Sure.
Jalal, did you see a lot of like pesticide use? I mean, how did you guys deal with like issues? Did you guys have any issues? Are they just such strong genetics you didn't even have to worry about it, or is like seeds your biggest problem?
Unless and until we are using our land-raised genetics and we are not using these hybrid seeds, which like some farmers around there have started using them. Like we don't have to worry about pesticides or even fertilizers. Like everything is naturally provided and naturally there, so like we don't have to worry about those things. And but like for the hybrid ones and for all other ones, then like obviously the hybrid seeds are the one which would be needing more sunlight or more daytime, so those are the one which are being grown inside, and like you can't just like leave them outside because they are the one who the temperature is different for them. They can't stand the heat or the sunlight over there, so like it's a lot. Like for the hybrid ones we have to take a lot of care if we are growing over there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very less farmer or the farmers who are very rich are would be growing hybrid. Other than that, like most of them are growing their land-based genetics because like the we now people over there are also shifting from hash to wheat. It's very hard to right now, you know, increase the like go the demand, take the demand the where supply, like take the supply where demand is right now. Everyone's over there smoking hash and like wanted and producing good quality hash takes 8 months or 9 months or a year time. They have to go get through that fermentation or stuff like that process to make it real good.
oh my god, tell them about the goat thing.
Yeah, so like the best hash process I traditionally love, or like I have smoked the best process hash was it was like in a goat skin. So like after cleaning the keef or getting the best keef out of from cleaning
It's
on,
the freeze dryer.
they just dump the keef in the goat skin, and the goat with has big asses and had a extra fat layer around the skin.
Fresh goat skin, once they harvest the goat,
Yeah.
then they take this fresh layer of fat on top of the fur and use it as parchment, basically.
Yeah, and they
I love it.
and they sew that goat all around and they dump that under the mud or sand for like 6-8 months. That's the like how they control temperature in the ground. And after like 6-8 months, whatever is coming out of that is like one of the best. Like it
That's
has
awesome.
Amazing.
Saturate, talk about fats and lipids.
Yeah.
yeah, like it has its own aroma. Like those are the hash which is now not available in market, but before it used to be. So
Okay.
right now what they're doing is after collecting the keef, they have this big pots. They're putting that keef on those pots and they're just burning that keef to make that into hash quickly. Like they are not even temperature controlling or doing that like with gadgets. They are just doing it manually, and they have that eye or they have that smell or like they have that knowledge of the texture. They'll just stop burning at that point, but still it's not like every time it's not stable. And so the smuggling process across the borders and everything that take tool on hash too, because during this process hash is taking a lot of beating of heat. like it's either transported in trucks, engine, or stuff like that, or tires. So it's been like that 16 or 18 hours drive or like 30 hours drive would be giving it constant heat, and that will make either it will make it good or it will just burn everything out of it.
Yeah.
It's like 50.
We talked about degradation can be a good thing at some points.
Well, and my question with that amount of heat application, can you just eat it and get high? Is it decarbed at that point?
No, like I have tried eating hash and getting high. My friends do, but like I have even make hash oil and like did that too. Made some steaks out of that, but it didn't give me that good high. Like no.
So maybe not so
And-
decarb because they're curing it and whatnot
Yeah.
underground where it's nice and cool, so that's not going to decarb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know there's the
getting back to
initial melting process, but again, that might only partially decarb it.
Even like how hot could the back of a truck get? Even if it was like 15 hours, it can't get up to like 220 to decarb it necessarily.
I mean, in Michigan, it's not crazy, but in Afghanistan or Arizona, like
I'm not sure what the internal temperature of cars gets at like 100 degrees.
Oh yeah, well over some days.
Like hashes over here there are named after the cities, after the towns. So like with that you can just know that where that town is geographically, and if for example that town has more sunlight or have more hot temperature, so that hash would be more indica side, and some town which is more in a shade or having a more like less sunlight day or having a colder day would be like those plants would be more sativa side. Like that's another different, like that's how we differentiate our strains over there. And but because like there's not that much difference in the area or difference in the distance between the town, so what, like most of the hash is mixed. It's just like all of the strains together. They don't even care like it's what they're growing. They'll just mix everything up. They'll just clean that from the cloth, and they'll just keep like 3 grades out. They'll make 3 grades out of the keef. The first grade would be obviously for themselves. The second or the third would be
Of course.
Just like Pedro was saying.
Yeah.
So the second or third would
This
be
is a
for
worldwide
commercial.
situation where we take that cream off the top.
It's so funny. Private reserve exists everywhere.
So that's
In there. So each town, like what it is. It's just like I was explaining them over here. It's kind of like wine, like the different areas. Like that's where we get like the Pinot Noir, the this, the that. I'm not a wine specialist, but yeah,
sommelier.
Yeah, no.
I bet you consider yourself a weed sommelier, though.
Sure.
I mean, if he's back, maybe. Oh man, I had it. Oh yeah, so yeah, the geographical location. The cool thing about over here in the United States, you'll find we do that too, Jalal. We have this beautiful strain, for example, runs, and we have Detroit runs, and we have Michigan runs, and we have Grand Rapids runs, and we have Kalamazoo runs, and we have Saginaw runs, and there's I think they're probably up north runs, and then there's like a Traverse City runs, and it's I'm kidding, obviously. But yeah, no, I like that idea of having it like geographically oriented, especially when it's like probably been growing there, like I said, for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. It's kind of bred itself. It's in a certain climate, a very particular portion of a climate, right? Getting a specific water source, growing in specific types of, we'll just call it soil or media, and that's all going to lead to these distinct flavors. Whereas, indoors, we're taking all that out of it and just trying to just grow specific things, whether it's volume or production or whatever, or of course the craft experience.
Truly native plant,
Mm-hmm.
That's what's cool about it. No pesticides. You don't have to deal with. It's already adapted to everything.
Right.
So you can just let her run.
One of the things that it maybe doesn't adapt to necessarily, though, although in some senses I think they have, the cannabis plant has and other plants too, but is we'll call it natural predators. And I'm not talking like predators at the scale of microscopic bugs that we have to throw other microscopic bugs at them to, fight their own little battles while they're running along the leaves. But when you brought up goats, I thought you were going to say the goats were eating your plants. Quite frankly, around here we've got a couple natural predators of the cannabis plant. One of them being these little bastards.
Oh, yeah.
Deer like to eat cannabis plants outdoors, so it's always smart to put some fencing around them if you can. And I think you're supposed to do it legally anyway. But Jalal, is there anything over there just eating the cannabis plants?
So like our wild cannabis plants are mostly male plants, and like those male plants they give you buzz as well, but there's a process of that. Like you just make bhang out of that. We call it bhang. You have to mix like liquids in it, and there's a drink out of you make a drink out of it. You drink that, and it will give you head and body high for like literally 5 to 6 hours. Like that's how long that buzz is. And
Oh wow.
very intense and like that bhang. So those male plants are mostly used in making bhang locally, illegally, but locally, yeah.
So
So animals, yeah, like not really many animals would like to eat while they are growing, but after when they are like cut off from the plant and they're like dried up, then you can feed to the animals.
Okay.
After, and the stems are used for like most of like the wild weed stems, the wild weed plant stems are used for the winters. They are the wood which has been used in those villages for the winters. That's the burning wood. That's all they got for the winters. So yeah, they collect that as well. So kind of like even we over there, we have this thing going on that we protect the wild plants too, because they're gonna give us free food for the animals we are keeping and free wood for the winters. So and they're gonna grow up again in summers. So
mhm.
we don't have to
That's
do anything. We just
that's the thing. If you want to keep these plants going and you're not taking clones, you're going to need some male plants, right? Like and you don't want to bring in outside genetics and do all that. It's going to make a mess, obviously. So yeah, let them be. Welcome back, Pedro. I'm going to assume your graphics card fried.
I don't know if it's the graphics card or if it's the. Can you hear me? We got me.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you, Bose headsets.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's the video cable like you said, or if it's the card or something. I'm gonna have to try to get with Buzz or somebody after this because, yeah, it was blinking pretty horribly and I just couldn't take it anymore. So I'm like, I'm out. I'll be back in a second. I'm out.
Yeah, tripping you.
A couple years back, I made Frenchie's version of Bang tea, and I've told the story a few times where I didn't drink much. I just took a small half shot, went downstairs. We started watching Back to the Future, and before he went even back in time, I was out, and I didn't wake up until he was punching Biff, and I'm like, I just slept through the whole damn movie, and then I felt it the next day. That was quite a ride for that. It's an interesting drink.
Have you guys tried any of the cannabis drinks that they have on the market now?
I have.
Michigan's taken a real long time to get online with that. Like when we first launched recreational dispensaries, there was already medical dispensaries with refrigerators in them. Those were I think it was more the black market dispensaries doing that. But by the time rec came around, they said no refrigeration at all allowed in the stores. So a lot of the stores that had already built out had to actually remove their refrigeration systems and displays. A big portion of why that was ruled that way is because they didn't want these baked good edibles going bad and molding out like they had seen so much of. and so it had to be shelf stable. Is basically the terminology. And the other portion is they just weren't, I don't think, comfortable introducing it in a beverage form yet. I know at least one company that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting that production line set up and not being able to use it for. They probably sold it before they ever even got to use it. To be honest with you, but I know it exists now, and I haven't actually tried one, so I'm curious to know what your guys' experience are with that. Now that you brought up the Bang drink,
I've tried quite a few, and in a lot of the competitions I've judged, they'll have like drinks. I'm a water drinker, so I have a hard time with those drinks just because I don't drink that naturally. So like I've liked the juices. There was a couple juices. One of them was like a guava of some sort juice that was medicated that was amazing. I saw one company up in Maine was doing like some really nice like canned drinks. And those were really good, but yeah, I think if you like drinks like that originally, like there's some really good ones out there. I don't.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
they-
let Superior talk, but I want to interject here. Superior, I'm sorry, because I have a feeling. Well, let me just put it this way: I have had drinks before, not from the commercial rec market or whatever. It's always been from other caregivers and stuff, and they fucking rock my world. Like they hit me very, very hard, and it does feel different than an edible. I think I'm like maybe it's cycling a little bit quicker through my system or something.
Well,
Being
I
in
think
that liquid form,
they're like nano. They're using like the nano emulsion.
nano infusion, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing that in gummies and stuff too. But
I think it's different in gummies though. You got to digest gummies before you get that. With a drink, it's just all
right,
available right then.
definitely. Because think about, that's a bad example. But the reason I interjected is Superior. What are the milligrams on these cans? Aren't they only like 5 or 10 milligrams or something?
yeah,
Because what am I gonna have to drink a 12 pack? Like
Yeah.
even I think what's the max? Is the max 100 here now?
it is
But
for rec. Medical's 200, but they're combining licenses by 2026.
Yeah, the 100 milligram drinks just didn't do it for me. It's not and I'm not an edible guy. It just didn't. I had no effects from them. Plus, like Jen was saying, the taste was horrible. It's just not something I would drink. I don't want to drink sparkling water that's flavored like it said watermelon. It did not fucking taste like watermelon.
Oh, no.
It's just they're just like that. When you said the juice, that actually sounds delicious, right? Like I can see you could mask the flavor and it would just be a good juice drink.
Yeah.
But when we were at the Cannabis Cup, the year there, I smoked way too much. The day before, drank too much that night before, and then smoked all day. And I was walking around. I saw a chair, and I'm like, I'm getting that fucking chair. So I walked over and sat down in that little. It was at the industrial complex. That one.
The Russell, yeah.
Buddy of mine was like, "Here, I'm gonna go get you a drink." So he ran and grabbed me a Slurpee, and I was like, "Sweet, I am hot as fuck." And I downed half this thing, and then look up, and it's a 1,200 milligram fucking.
Oh,
shitting me! I was already over the limit, so yeah, it was a rough day.
No amount of CBD is gonna bring you down from that.
Yeah.
So.
He didn't know it was one of those things that was just written, in small numbers next to the price, and he just went and bought a Slurpee for me.
I thought you were going to say it was one of those pina colada like pineapple drinks or whatever, because my whole crew got one of those, and by the time we got on stage, we were in a different planet.
Yeah, some of those drinks were over the top that they had there.
But it's fun.
My first reaction is always no, thank you.
Yeah. Mine's usually, oh, I'm thirsty, thank you. Like Superior is saying, like your first reaction is just drink it, and then your next reaction is shit. Is this loaded with fucking 1,200 milligrams?
At the first one we went to at Clio at the racetrack, one of the first things we did is walked in, you make a left, and there's a hamburger thing, and I'm like, fucking hungry. Hell yeah. Medicated hamburgers. Like, damn it, I just wanted a burger. Like, I didn't want everything to be medicated.
He came to the wrong place.
I was judging an event and I woke up in the morning and they had like this full breakfast spread and I'm like, fuck yes. So I like dip into the fucking whipped cream and strawberries because it's like hand whipped, just amazing like whipped cream and strawberries and a couple other things. And I get to fucking eating. And it was probably like 20 minutes later. I'm like, oh. And someone comes in, they're like, how many milligrams is in this whipped cream? And she's like, a lot. And I was like, wait, what? Like, yeah, I apparently got to it a little too soon because there was supposed to be like a little sticker that went on it that said medication. Like 50 milligrams a tablespoon. And I went,
Whoa.
I went hard on that shit because that's my favorite. I was like,
fresh whipped cream's hard to just take a little dip.
Yeah.
It is. So yeah, I way dosed myself. It was I don't know if it was worth it, but at the time it felt like it. Consent though, like let me know, you know?
Yeah, that's I it's not cool to dose people. We should make that very clear. Like you always want to like label it. And it's I know it's you know, we don't always have access to lab testing and sometimes it's, you know, it's more of an expense than I don't know whether you could afford or it's worth or whatever you want to say, you know, but do some experimenting, try to nail down a formula. I'll just throw one out there. Go with what are you about to do? You got a fly flying around?
I have mosquito by my head and he's about to fucking die.
I like the 65% rule. So if I'm you know, I've got a gram of decarbed oil, I'm going to assume that's probably about 650 milligrams of activated THC. Based on my extensive testing of my oil at the labs, that's pretty damn accurate. And so that's why I run with that. But, you know, everyone decarbs at different temperatures and different times and has different consistencies of oils, or maybe it's not oil at all. Maybe you're infusing butter, you know, with just the last batch of weed you grew and you throw it on a crock pot and strain it out with cheesecloth like we used to do back in the day. And wow, those cookies smack too, you know, but at least label it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said oh, actually, I've got a question. I know you said you judged, but I want to know about your Cannabis Cup. What did you win the Cannabis Cup for? What, when, where, why, how? Tell us about it.
So 2014, the Santa Rosa Cup of I think it was the San Francisco Cup at that time. Yeah, it was actually right after those. My team heckled me right out of the BHO room and into Water Hash. So I just decided to enter as kind of like a tribute to High Times because in Utah growing up, like we didn't have access to anything about weed. Like we were hard pressed to find a High Times at a 7-Eleven every once in a while. So yeah, I was just excited to enter, and then they gave me so much hell about it that I was just like, this is stupid. They're like, you're not going to win. This is stupid. And I was like, can you just change the fucking ice packs on your little drive? Like, God, it's not. So yeah, they heckled the shit out of me the whole goddamn time. So, yeah, then I fucking won and they were all so mad at me.
Sweet revenge.
So fucking mad at me. Like literally were taking pictures of my trophy without me while I sat there and I was like, isn't it customary to take pictures with like the person that did the work? And they were just like, fuck you. Like they're just super salty. Like it was very unexpected, but when I started making hash, like it just came really naturally to me. So there was also a lot of salty people online because they're like, wait, like we've been doing this as long as you know, and I'm like, well, yeah, but I also have full control over my genetics, my plants. I'm picking the phenos, I'm growing them, I'm harvesting them when I feel appropriate. I did a blend. So like I was one of the first people that started doing blends because I wanted the two different kinds because I would get that layered effect for for the talk about full spectrum, you get two really great strains that complement just in their levels of terpenes and cannabinoids. Put those together, like it gives you such an amazing high, So like I just went ahead of what a lot of people were doing because I was very interested in just all the little bits and being very precise and very like, yeah. So it was what I like to say is it was like one of the best and worst days of my life, basically.
Damn.
Yeah.
Bittersweet.
So the good parts were great. The bad parts were not so great. But it kind of, I don't know, it was fucking amazing for sure. Like, yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit of an upset. Everybody thought, Banff was on just like a fucking roll. Like he just could not lose. And so everybody was like, you're going to lose to Banff anyway. So I had zero anticipation of winning whatsoever. I hadn't even gotten to see a lot of other people's hash. Like I was I was going into this blind. Like nobody was posting a lot of pictures of their shit. So when I made it with the little bit of instructions that I could find and then just like tried to figure it out on my own, I didn't even know what I was working with. So I was like, shit, like super embarrassed. Like, I don't know if this looks right. Like, I don't know. Apparently I fucking did it right.
You won. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Hey, did you jump in on the hair straightener train early on and like, what was it? Like freaking February, March 2016 or something like that when that kind of hit?
Yeah, I was in the front of that. I had a friend. It's funny. I had a friend that told me about it first. He's like, "Have you seen this flower rosin shit?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? That's stupid." He was like, "This is fucking dumb." Until he's like, "No, you got to do it," and I did, and I was like, "What is this?" Like, okay,
that can happen. What?
Okay, sorry, I was an asshole. Like, let me pay attention here. Yeah. So yeah, I was there for that whole start of thing. I think I even have like one like YouTube video from like I only have a couple because I've never actually gotten to put my shit on YouTube. I haven't gotten there yet. But there's one on there maybe, or maybe it's on my Instagram. But it's me with a hair straightener saying, "Oh my God, they work for hair too." Like and like showing the process of it, but then using it on my hair. So I like to crack a lot of jokes, like I'll see like at the Goodwill, I'll see hair straighteners. I'm like, ooh, vintage rosin presses. Like, this is so great. It's just dumb shit. But yeah, I did some of that, not a lot. A little bit.
Flower rosin was a fun few years for me too.
Yeah. See, I never got into the flower rosin. I went just straight for hash. I had a bunch of keef and was like, oh. So I was like cutting up, those 25 micron screens that we get with wash bags? I'm like cutting those up to like wrap it and do it. And, yeah.
Yeah, I pressed my fair amount of flour for sure, but I quickly realized that it was just kind of squeezing the trash out of the flour. I don't know. To me, flour rosin is just horrible. Even to this day, it's just horrible.
Every now and then you can pull some gold out, some really pretty stuff that you can.
That, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, you can get some decent enough stuff. I mean, most flower rosin is going to leave shit on your banger, though. That's the big difference, right, between hash rosin and flower rosin. You can see the difference when you clean your banger at the end.
I wish I could tell you I had experience to back you up on that. I mean, as I was a hash maker coming in when that came in, so like it didn't make any sense to squish the flour. I already had hash, so
yeah.
My first summer when I learned, I pressed probably 3 to 4 pounds of trim, just nothing but trim, and learned how to press by feel. And I mean, it's helped a lot. I notice now that I have the logging and the freaking pressure gauge and pressing by feel actually works. You gotta get your feel of the machine. And every one of them is different. But
there's a certain level of muscle memory that goes into all of this, whether it's the processing or even the growing side of things. You kind of go on this automation to some extent. I know when you're working with new strains or new, maybe lights or scenarios, nutrients, any of those variables that we throw at our plants, like that can kind of take you out of it. But for the most part, a lot of it is muscle memory after a certain point. And I don't know if that's the 10,000 hours or whatever it is, but at a certain point, that's what it becomes.
I think those 10,000
drive
hours or
home.
something. Those 10,000 hours or something that's very underestimated too, or underlooked. There's plenty of times when I'm getting ready to go do something with the family, go do a barbecue, or go fishing or something. I'm like, hang on, I gotta go check the garden, I gotta go water the plants, I gotta go do this or that. I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm like, it's all part of it. You want to smoke the rosin, right? Like, it's all part of it.
Yep. Guess who's got to water after the show tonight?
Yeah, right, exactly. I thought about it because I did it this afternoon.
I can water right now if you want. I can just...
Yeah, he's Buzzy's on that e-nail shit.
Email of grow rooms.
So bringing it back to that muscle memory real quick, I found it pretty interesting. So I've always used my Sasquatch, and I've just got the hand pump. And when I was in Massachusetts a couple weeks ago, Ben McCabe, he had the low temp with like all the digital like pressure graphs and shit. So I found it insanely interesting to like watch him go through the process, like mainly viewing the graphs, right? And then to do it by feel and like not look at the graphs, but then look at the graphs after. About like,
yeah, that's what I do. I pretty much press based on feel, and I glance at the gauge, but then I pull the data upstairs and I can look at the graph, and it's very different than the normal. Mine's more like I've got some adjustments still to do, but it's not perfect graph yet.
Yeah, that was fun though. It was interesting to actually see that like on paper. Like,
I was so stoked when they came out.
What I was doing, to be like, oh, okay, so yeah, they were a little bit different approaches. So
yeah, I think just like for Girly said, I guess I didn't realize that when I went through and tested the graphing systems, I realized that it just proved that it was just muscle memory, and I really didn't need that myself. So let's just go. So I haven't used it for quite a minute.
Yeah,
I love my data.
It was fun though. I did love checking it out. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Very valuable information for sure. But
100%.
When you have the information, sometimes you just don't need it there all the time.
Yeah, it's, starting as long ago as I did and not having access to all of that and really having to learn everything on my own and with just muscle memory and experience and trial and error and R&D and stuff. I don't know. I find a lot of value to that like a lot of like these new people don't really understand, like just the small little tips and tricks that I can give because I had to learn it because we didn't have these additional things. So there was things that we had to put into place to avoid that. Like there's so many like easy buttons now, but
also knowing the hard way and then having access to the new stuff allows you to pull like that extra 1 or 2% off. Like you can just dial yourself in even just more so than what an average person is going to hit. Like
just like using a new tool.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's fun to do that for sure. I'm like, oh my god, all these new gadgets, like it's great.
Yep. They're not all great, but there is some cool shit out there.
Yeah,
some of the stuff we just look at it like, what in the fuck are we thinking as a community here?
Some of the most basic stuff, though, just like sensors and controllers, like those are, I think, probably the two biggest game changers. Because, I mean, they do work in tandem with each other. But even if you've got some sort of manual or mechanical type controller that you can set up at least just a time frame on, that's huge. And just having maybe your lights running a certain way, right? But then having the sensors to make those automatic adjustments, is massive too. And that's where the snowball really starts rolling, because you might not just be sensing temperature and, you know, whether or not the lights are on and whether or not they need to dim because it's too hot, but you might also be sensing the humidity and being able to adjust that instantaneously. On top of that, maybe you've got an irrigation system, and those are hooked up to a sensor, you know, a moisture sensor, and so they're automatic. You don't even have to do anything; they're just automatically going. You know,
Even
I
without
think
a
I think
controller,
Bud's
though,
just heard a fucking cricket in his garden just a second ago.
I mean, even before, or if you don't have a controller, just having a sensor alone is so valuable.
Hmm.
Being able to look at a graph of what your temperature and humidity does over a day is so wild. Like, you will quickly see, like, wait a minute, this looks like when I opened the door and left it open when I was in there instead of closing it behind myself. Or here's where I went in and I forgot to turn one of the fans back on after I left.
Or do I breathe that heavy when I'm
Yeah,
defoliating that I added
Like,
400
Right.
ppms of CO2? What?
Right.
Oh damn! When I changed that filter, it really had that effect. Like,
Right.
fuck.
Being able to see that, and especially, like, I mean, 10 years ago or so, since I put my first sensors in my garden, putting 2 sensors, if you have a bigger room, if you're bigger than a tent, you have a long rectangular room, put 2 sensors in, because you're going to see if you're imbalanced from left to right of the room, which if you only have 1 sensor, you're never going to know about that microclimate.
Well, or at the very least, leave it in a spot for a day to 72 hours and then move it. And not just left to right in the room, but up and down too. Especially if we're talking, you know, 9 foot to 14 foot or more ceilings, you're going to have some wild different climates in there. If you got a real thick canopy, you're going to have some very different, climates in there. Flood and drain tables, or just, you know, tables that you got your plants on, that's a whole nother wall now. You know, you got to think like that. Air movement, oh, it's so huge.
Yeah. Making sure you're mixing
I
correctly.
like to compare, now that we have all these gadgets and stuff, it's almost like the difference between having like Google Maps versus like a paper map. Like, so
Right.
there are really obvious benefits to having all those sensors and stuff, but to a certain extent, I feel like it's made people really dependent on them, to the point where they're kind of losing sight of like what that plant actually needs. They're so busy reading the sensors and the data and the this and that they're not actually like learning to read the plant per se. You know, not in all cases, obviously, but I feel like a lot of people that are starting to grow now that are going to be very dependent on these devices, like, they're just missing out on so much of being in touch with that plant, you know.
But one of the challenges with paper maps is they change over time. And if you've got a paper map, you have to go get a new one every year. Whereas if you have just the app, it updates. I don't know, I guess when you update it, but you know.
There's so many fucking apps. Every time I go into a grocery store and they're like, "Oh, just download the app," I'm like, "Well, stop with the apps, please."
I actually moved from Detroit to San Antonio and used a paper map for the entire drive. Pre-Google Maps days, pre-MapQuest. Like, so
maps
like
I did that to
highlighter
Florida.
on the fucking highways so that we knew where to go, and you had to tell someone, well, we need to get off at this next exit. You know, but I've also moved across from California back to Detroit using an app and GPS, and like, now you just get off and it tells you how to get the fuck back on and get back. It's
feels more like muscle memory.
Yeah. You can be much lazier.
It's following directions as opposed to like naturally like
planning them,
figure shit out by yourself. Yeah, get lost without a fucking map. Like, I keep maps in my car still. I'll have a fucking atlas in there, because if my phone goes down on me, guess what? I can pull out that map. And I've been in too many back roads areas to where it's like, oh shit, like, what do I do? Just fucking drive that way until my phone starts working?
Right, find the service.
Oh yeah, I know all about that.
Yeah, right. Spear, I did a trip down to Florida and back once with like a, you know, old style maps like that. I think it was a book. Obviously, you're not getting all of Michigan to Florida on a paper map that size, but yeah, You get quite a few.
Yep, flip state to state.
Yeah. That said, the second time I did it, I used MapQuest because that was available. And I mean, that planned it for you, but you still had to read the directions and pay attention and make sure that, in 7.2 miles, I got to catch this exit. And I'm
Yeah,
going
it wasn't
38
in our
miles on this
pocket.
road. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
But
how
at
you
least
turn
they-
turn
Tape
left
to your-
at the stoplights.
Yeah.
tape
Like-
to your radio, baby.
Yeah, that first version still wasn't as good as what we have today, but it's still light years ahead of. I don't know what the exit number is. I just know you have to get from this highway to this highway. So you're looking at every sign, looking for highway numbers. Versus,
Why do you think mazes were so popular when we were kids? You know what I mean? Like
They were training our
prepping you. Yeah. If only there was a compass integrated into the maze somehow, I guess.
Rand McNally.
Was it
That's fun.
Rand McNally? I thought it was Rand something else.
it might have been.
Hmm.
Sounded familiar.
Sounds familiar.
Nowadays, I have a tablet
Google
in
it.
my Razor, and I download all the trail maps so that even if I lose service in the woods, I still have my GPS can get me the hell out. There's a lot of woods that you can get lost in here, and
Oh, for sure, I can imagine.
every tree looks the same once you take a few turns.
Back in Maine, like every road anywhere looked like it was a side road to something, but it wasn't. It was actually like the main area. But
The first time I really saw how wild Maine was, it kind of blew my mind. Like, holy shit, that's like serious forest and mountain men type of shit up there.
yeah, it was a different world. But after I got comfortable with the fact that like at least two people come by here in a period of 6 hours, like cool. So if I do go off a ditch, chances are someone's gonna find me, even though it doesn't look like it. Like it looks like I am gonna die. Like that's it. I am gonna die. Nobody will ever find me on this road. And then it's like, no, that's just how the roads are built. Like everything looks like it's so scenic. Half the roads don't have fucking lines on them. There are no Maine is wild. Took me a good year to be like, okay, this is good. The good thing is though, is people in Maine are so nice that I think that they would like, there's not a single person in Maine that wouldn't stop. Like,
Yeah, that's how it is here in the UP.
yeah. Like
well, it's because you can't survive alone up there for half
Yeah.
the year, and you just know that's how it works. So you gotta you gotta rely on other people, and when you see other people that need relying on you step up.
It's just the way it is.
Always got toe straps and the freaking
Yep.
tire sleds and all that shit. in the
Jumper
truck.
cables and
Jump box.
Everything you can need, and literally all you have to do is, so whenever it's still one of those states where if someone's walking by, it's hi, you're driving, hi, but if you want someone to stop, it's just a little extra, and then
Yep.
you good, look at you, like amazing.
Y'all good over there? You need anything?
Well, Jen and Jalal, this has been fantastic. You know what? You too, Chase. It was great for you to
He
jump
already
in here
bailed
too.
on us.
Shucks.
We'll let him know though.
Yeah, tell him to DM me about paintball later. But it was a pleasure. I mean, I feel like this discussion could just go for several more hours, honestly. But it's getting late, and eventually we're gonna have to go to bed. So, but I do appreciate you guys' time tonight. It was great having both of you. It's very interesting getting different perspectives on everything from the hash question to how you guys started smoking and that whole experience until now. You guys got anything else? Where can we put it this way? Where can we find you before we hop
There you
off?
go.
You can find me mostly on Instagram for right now. Jenn Doe 420, 2 N's. And Jalal, do you have a weed?
Check
one?
no, but like
It's just
Jalal doesn't have any weed up on his page, but
Yeah.
he's also a photographer, so he's got some really cool fucking pictures and stuff.
Nice. You
You
want to plug it?
Yeah, what's your Instagram?
it's MJS Khwaja, KHAWAJA.
One more time because I'm looking this up live.
MJS KHAWAJA.
Awesome. Got it.
Got it.
Hell yeah. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah, go look this up, guys. That's sweet. There's flames.
Get it.
He's got
Okay.
great stuff on
That's
there.
awesome. That's
And-
awesome.
Me and Jalal have been kicking around the idea of putting together our own little podcast to discuss some of the awesome like differences and shit. So if we do, we'll keep you posted. But I'm super happy to come hang out with you guys. So thank you for having us.
Hell yeah.
It was
Yeah,
great.
I've been meaning to have this conversation for a long time, so I appreciate you coming on. Jalal, nice meeting you very much. So
Thank you so much. The pleasure was all mine.
Cheers, guys. Have a great
Take
night.
care,
And
guys.
of course, we'll be here next week.